it's not the best football from Johor. Buriram played better. But when their backs were against the wall, JDT showed that they were really no pushovers. Not the most beautiful football displayed, but Johor Darul Takzim did more than enough to return to Sultan Ibrahim Stadium for the second leg next Tuesday after holding Buriram United to a goalless draw in the first leg of the round of 16 AFC Champions League Elite match held earlier tonight at the Buriram Stadium. And usually when we talk about the Malaysian champions, we talk about their free-flowing football, their goal scorers, their creative midfielders, and as much as the defenders also did their part in helping Johor cement a decade of dominance and continuing in domestic football, and I think even in this season in Asia as well, I think their importance has been understated until now, until tonight, when Johor showed why they mean business this time. And when you look at the Southern Tigers starting 11 ahead of the first leg, Hector Bidoglio clearly kept the team shape as he did in their 5-2 demolition of Pohang Steelers, but with a few notable changes. Park Jun-hyung returns from his two-match suspension and takes over the left side of a three-man defense the right side of the three-man defense that Johnny Ahmad has deputized more than credibly in his absence. Then Nasrul Insa also has a new central midfield partner. This time, Anselmo actually started for the first time in the Southern Tigers colours, and in a rather unusual move, I don't know whether it's unusual, but you have Juan Muniz relegated to the bench, with Jonathan Vieira being promoted to play on the left side of the midfield, with Arif Aiman retaining the right side, and with Bergson being the lone man up front. But yet, despite the same formation, it is quite clear that the test the Southern Tigers faced in Buriram was more intense, was more severe than what Pohang threw at them in their in the final league game of the ACLE. And it's quite clear that it's going to be a battle of attrition on the pitch, especially when both Buriram and Johor Darul Takzim named only one local born player each. Arif Aiman for the visitors and Supanat Mutena for the home side. And it showed actually, because how do I put this? When both sides actually packed their foreign stars who have had physique, who have more than decent level of European football education, and also you can say in terms of the size that they have, it was going to be a battle of physicality, and we actually saw a very different side of Johor Darul Takzim today, when I think it's something that JDT fans have rarely seen for some time when it comes to them. Even in their earlier ACLE defeats away, you don't see Johor Darul Takzim really go for the blood. Yes, they do tackle, but you don't see them hounding for blood. In this case, especially the first half, it was really a physical affair. Yes, Bergson was centimeters away from connecting a free kick from Murillo, but that was as good as Johor got for much of the first half. As the game descended into a battle, it's like who can withstand the challenges, the lunges better than the other. And it's not in the context of Malaysian football where when you just want to take that person out of the game. Yes, there was intention to take, but it was not the intention to injure the person, just eliminate him like that. But it's more like to show that, hey, I'm here and I'm not going to make the game easy for you. And that was what both teams tried to show in that first half struggle for I think it's a struggle for any presence, any fluidity in their play, because it was littered with quite a number of fouls where you saw Nacho Insa, the JDT captain, who is always known for his composure on the ball, who is renowned for keeping the team flowing with his recycling moves, particularly when he drops back into the defensive third to collect the ball and keep the ball moving forward progressively before launching it into the final third through Arif Aiman, Bergson, or even previously Juan Muniz and your overlapping fullbacks Murillo and Oscar Arribas. But this time it's a little different. Where you see your Bergsons and your Nacho Insas who are better known for their flair, impose themselves physically and committing fouls for the cause. You know that they really want this badly as the hosts do. And how much so? So much so that Nacho actually got a yellow card midway in the first half for a rash challenge. You can say it's rash, but it also showed that spirit, that determination of these players not to allow themselves to be intimidated, not allow themselves to be rolled over by the predicted dominance of the home side. And even as Johor were unusually tested in ways that previous opponents in their travels had not exactly done so. I mean, when it comes to previous Johor visits away, it was more of a case of individual brilliance from a few players from the away side that led to either Johor being held to a draw or losing despite their best efforts. But this time there is an edge to it, and this edge is very prevalent. So prevalent that all the yellow cards in this game were handed to JDT players. The guys wearing in their away yellow, luminous yellow kits. And I mean, not just Nacho. I think there were a few others who were booked as well in this match for their, you can say, I would say overzealous, but unfortunately the Saudi referee really treated this game very strictly and really went by the book, although he also gave quite a bit of leeway. Otherwise we could have seen Nacho Insa potentially being sent off for a second yellow, although for his experience and his age, it would be rather out of the blue for Nacho to do something rash to allow this to happen, which fortunately for JDT fans, for his teammates, it never happened. Yes, he continued to be robust, but he never went way over the line. And I have to explain why, because this is not like what we sometimes see in your domestic Southeast Asian League, where sometimes when these tackles come flying in, they come flying in not for the ball. They come flying in because they want to take out this player or that player out of the game completely. But for JDT's cases, they want to win the game. They want to compete. Yes, they do make those rather cynical tackles and fouls. But what they wanted is, they wanted to show that they were not going there to be pushed over. They were not going there to just be cannon fodder, not at all. And in fact, in such a battle, it is not just your wholehearted defensive efforts of the Southern Tigers that deserve to be lauded. In this game in particular, the defense played a critical role in keeping a clean sheet, in keeping this stalemate, so that they can set up for a very thrilling second leg next week at the Sultan Ibrahim Stadium. step forward goalkeeper Andoni Zubiaye and centre back Alvaro Gonzalez. These two particularly played outstanding roles in the second half, especially when Buriram threw everything at them. Yes, they threw everything at them for much of the second half. And you can also say that JDT did not venture much as they have usually done. But to venture recklessly would be suicidal, as they knew. And JDT were also unusually pinned back by a very high pressing game by Buriram. You can see that it took quite a while for the Southern Tigers to get used to that very high intense pressing game, where even Zubiai, at the goalkeeper I mentioned, who performed heroics in the second half, which I'll touch on a bit later, even he had a couple of missed kicks that went straight to touch, that went straight out of the touch line for throwing back to return the possession back to the opponent. And also, when it comes to compact defending, you see the JDT players being unafraid to throw their bodies, to deny shots, to block attempts, to block the crosses, the dangerous passes, the dangerous crosses from causing problems as much as possible. And you can also see that champions or winners do have a little bit of good fortune. In this case, they had the post to thank for denying Supanat from scoring a rather acrobatic goal off a set play when in the second half. And also, how do I put this? Excellent defending, positioning. I mean, they eventually got around figuring out what Buriram were up to for the first half and also for some time in the second half. It's like they couldn't just play the normal passing game, because their Buriram strikers are always high up there wanting to seize on any mistake JDT were making. But JDT stood firm. Generally they stood firm. Even when Park Jun-hyung, who had an excellent game much of the time coming up one-on-one against Supanat, he was instrumental in denying Supanat the final touch with an interception of a cross in the first half, and you can say blocking quite a number of Supanat crosses or passes when in the one-on-one duels. When he was replaced by Jordi Ahmad, by then it was Alvaro Gonzalez who took over the defensive show for the second half. And when it comes to that, Alvaro's presence since he joined in January has been exceptional. It was his intelligence and his reading of the game that allowed JDT to retain a sense of defensive calm. It's not that the back three were not good, no. But Alvaro's, in particular, that one header where he headed away a potentially dangerous cross, when, if left unattended to, a Buriram player was somewhere nearby to pounce. If not for that header, if not for the interception in the second half, JDT might have gone home with a 1-goal disadvantage and with quite a bit to do. And you can say that towards the end of the game, or for parts of it, JDT at least still kept a sense of what they wanted, have kept the play that they had always adhered to at times. Although it wasn't as fluent as what they would have usually done, although it was not as fluid as how they would have liked, Arif Aiman was a bright spot, although he was not their best player. It was these two defensive players that I've mentioned. But Arif Aiman had caused enough problems for JDT to be wary of him after he had caused problems on the right first and later on the left in the first half. And that's where you can also say about other players. Bergson, apart from his foul trouble, unfortunately was unable to make an impact and was substituted at halftime with Obregon. Obregon, who was much maligned, laughed at for during the much of the league stage for his inability to position himself for goal scoring chances, for missing chances until his penalty against Pohang Steelers that sealed the 5-2 win. It was his physical presence inside the box that enhanced that physical battle. It's like if Buriram are going to go physical, JDT know that they're not going to just let them get away with it. By putting Anselmo in midfield alongside Nacho, it also gave a signal that they were putting a slightly more defensive posture than usual, because they know that if they could get away with a draw, as it eventually happened, then they have a good chance of making something happen at home on Tuesday. And Anselmo was his physical presence make Buriram feel like at times they were running against a brick wall, because whenever Buriram tried to make a certain headway with Anselmo coming, they couldn't go past him much of the time. It was when their frustration come. Even when they thought that Park Jun-hyung was probably the weakest link, not so. But still, that formation does have its weaknesses where when threaded through and when the defensive offside trap was broken, JDT at times did feel vulnerable. But that's really where the goalkeeper come in. That's where the three-man defense stood firm in general. That's why Johor could survive the onslaught at Buriram. And if I would say also at times, the good fortune, the post was one. The second was Buriram being unable to take any chances in the final third, despite at times what appeared to be a few good opportunities presented to them. Yes, they had one from their Croatian midfielder or Serbian midfielder that flew just over the bar in the first half. Then they also had another chance also, where I think towards the end of the game, where Zuch, the Buriram, another Buriram midfielder, he actually had his corner kick audaciously curling towards Zubai's goal. But even though Zubair had made an error of misjudgment in anticipation and positioning, fortunately it went just wide. I mean, Buriram, and not only that, they actually mark this striker, their Buriram, the striker who was, see, Bokai out of the game for month. It's like, yes, Bokai played for almost the entire 90 minutes, but with Bokai being unable to connect to the shots and causing, so it's like when you do not have the final touch, if you do not score, you can't win the game. And it was in the case of Bokai where he wasn't able to meet many of the crosses that were intended for him, thanks to stout defending, thanks to the at times desperate action by the Southern Tigers. But the Southern Tigers knew what they had to do defensively, and they played at a defensive level that you rarely see, because in the domestic games they do not need to exert this much. Even in the Champions League defeats in Korea and eventually the game that was declared null and void because of Shantong's withdrawal, they did not have to exert as much to go on to full-blooded defense just to prove a point. But they had to, because two legs, plenty is at stake. It's the unofficial battle of who is the best Southeast Asian club in Asia, and they know how much it means if whoever prevails at the end of it. And you can say that, as I repeat, it's not the best football from Johor. Buriram played better, but when their backs were against the wall, JDT showed that they were really no pushovers. And attack-wise, yes, they had their very few moments, but they couldn't make it totally count. But it didn't really matter in the end, because as much as they did not really test New Anchorage, but I think if they had made one or two of their rare, clear set-piece chances count, apart from Bergson's very narrow, I think just a few centimeters away, he might have headed home that goal in the 7th minute, or 40 minutes from time when, from a JDT corner, Eddie Israfilov flicked over, but Obregon for some reason chose to somehow thought that he would do a fancy flick, but where his attempted back flick actually only touched air, not the ball, just air only. But that was as much as they got. They had a few attacking opportunities, but you can say with a game plan to just come home with still something to play for, you can say this is tournament football that Johor is mastering now. Tournament football, not at their best, but getting the result that is needed. I think this is what we are seeing in Johor, because Johor have never reached the quarterfinal of the ACLE or in various iterations like the ACL or the Asian Club Championships. Never. Buriram had reached the quarterfinals once. That was in the ACL era. I think it was in 2013 or 14. Yes, where they were eliminated by Esteghlal of Iran. But that was a different time, more than 10 years ago. Now, JDT wanted this badly, because whoever wins will reach to the final rounds in Saudi Arabia, and they do want that ticket. And with that goalless draw, there's plenty to look forward to. But Tirata Mumanta will come back for Buriram in the second leg, and with past grudges from the first leg yet to be settled, will they resurface again in the second leg? Already it is anticipated that Sultan Ibrahim Stadium will be full house, and I will be there next Tuesday to also catch the potentially explosive second leg of the round of 16 encounter. I will be there. Johor fans, do your part, be there, and I also do hope to be able to report something more positive after the game ends, and I also wish the Southern Tigers the best in the second leg. We will be there backing you.